What's wrong with DEI programs? Well, it turns out quite a few things. Although these things are not the things you might have read about in the news recently, these things nevertheless have a huge impact on whether or not these initiatives and programs are going to be successful. Looking at a variety of literature on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, I've boiled down the reasons into these 6 factors. First, these programs are mandatory. Second, they focus on compliance and making sure people follow the rules. Third, there is really poor communication in terms of how these programs are connected to organizational success and positive benefits for all. Four, there's a lack of ongoing support to help with its implementation. Fifth, the creation and framing of programs are not inclusive. And sixth, there is no sense of ownership among the workforce that is taking the training and asked to implement the recommended activities. Let's take a look a little bit into each one of these. First, DEI programs, like many workplace trainings, are mandatory and compulsory. You don't have a choice of whether you attend or not. If there's no clear connection to how a training is going to improve my job performance and help me achieve my goals, why am I having to do it in the first place? Removing agency and choice always makes for a hard sell. It's better to at least make someone feel like they have a choice. And if they have no choice, make sure you show how the program is going to be beneficial to them. Second, in terms of focusing on compliance, it's really hard to get people to internalize new behaviors just under the threat of punishment. The emphasis on compliance and not breaking the rules or the law can create a kind of gotcha environment where people are just fearful of being punished for doing something wrong instead of thinking about doing something right. Or, as sociologists Frank Dobbin and Alexandra Califf wrote in their article, Why Diversity Programs Fail, quote, you won't get managers on board by blaming and shaming them with rules. Third, these programs are not adequately communicated in terms of the positive impacts they'll have on organizational success and business strategy. Because there is no clear connection to the programs and success, people are left to wonder, why do I have to do these? Erica Johnson writes in Forbes, quote, leaders must integrate the values of diverse and inclusive culture with organizational objectives. Also, Jackie Clayton observes in Fast Company, quote, the number one reason why most DEI programs fail, particularly at for-profit companies, is because those who are requesting it are being asked to create a business case for a moral imperative. Now, while moral imperatives are important, we always can't expect them to be as closely held among all people or held at all. People may not care about the moral imperative whatsoever. So just relying on a moral imperative may not make the most convincing case for why we're doing it in the first place. Fourth is the point that these programs often aren't accompanied with ongoing support for those who are asked to implement them. Quote, a major reason why diversity programs fail or are ineffective is due to a lack of follow-up or a linking of what you're learning in those modules to your day-to-day experience in the workplace, says Dr. Sonia Kang, Canada Research Chair in Identity, Diversity, and Inclusion at the University of Toronto. In the workplace, there can be few things as bad as being asked to do more work and given no resources to do them with. So if we're going to ask people to do more work, such as implement these programs, we really got to make sure there's ongoing support and assistance that facilitates them doing that work. Fifth, ironically, these programs can actually increase the perception of difference and social distance among workers. For instance, while ERG programs can have the positive effect of connecting people together who might otherwise feel isolated and marginalized, they can also have the effect of creating social distance between these different groups. These programs can start to feel like they're for some people, but not for all people. As was written in Forbes, quote, one key hindrance is the perception of diversity as anything other than meaning the inclusion of people of distinct ages, genders, ethnicities, social classes, income levels, and different cultural backgrounds. So we actually have to do the work of making DEI feel more inclusive. Six, there can be a lack of ownership among workers because they weren't involved in creating the programs in the first place. A lot of trainings, and DEI is no exception, can really feel like these cookie cutter top down initiatives in which employees weren't asked their opinion, weren't asked for suggestions, and their input was never integrated into these programs. And when there's no sense of ownership into something, people might have a hard time buying into it. To increase buy in, it's also important to create ownership. So clearly, there's a lot that can be done to improve DEI programs and initiatives. And in upcoming videos, I'm going to take a look at each one of these points and dig a little bit deeper into what we can do to make DEI programs better and more effective for organizations as well as for the people within them.